looking out into the street, sitting there. As the cars would pass by, people walking by, looking at me with a silent stare, without one of them even saying a word to me, probably wondering the same thing that I was wondering: who was I? Who was I? Where was I? For the feeling of shock and horror that would follow for the moment, it had not really begun to set in yet, for something deep down just did not feel right to me. As for I was just still waking up from the realization of what was happening, wanting to scream out, but everything in me was still very much dark, sitting there alone, cold and wet, thinking to myself, what was I doing sitting there in the rain, not remembering anything, unable to remember anything at all, as the feeling of loneliness began to set in, the feeling of being alone, of being abandoned, for as the people would walk by a stranger, I was to them as they were strangers to me, wondering to myself, how did I get here? What has happened to me? As fear and shock was slowly beginning to take place, along with the feeling of being lost. As I sat there looking down at my rain-soaked clothes, or at least what I had on, which was only a t-shirt and bedpants, not to mention that I had no shoes or socks on, with no indication of where I was or where I came from, only knowing that I was here sitting in the rain looking at people as they passed by me, with no one stopping to even say a word to me, with nobody really showing that they even cared, except a man who approached me asking, what have we here? Little girl, what are you doing out here, sitting out here in the rain in your pajamas? Looking into his eyes with fear, the only thing I could say was, I don't know where I am, or do I remember anything? Placing his hands on my shoulder, he assured me that he would try his best to help me out. With him then telling me that his name was Azazel, letting me know that he was the town's local sheriff, and that he would try to help me. Making my way slowly up to my feet as I got up to follow the sheriff, I noticed a guy standing across the street from me, just standing there staring at me. With the eerie feeling suddenly coming over me, I just shrugged it off, not thinking much about it at the moment. As we walked down the street to the police station, sitting down with me, he then proceeded to ask me to try to remember what I could, but before could say anything at all, I found myself looking straight into a fogged-up window. Seeing a word begin to appear as it came into focus, it read, alone. Seeing that the same man from earlier this time was standing out from the window, just standing there staring at me. Not moving, just standing there with a dead stare. With the feeling of fear coming over me, standing up, looking to the sheriff, screaming to him, I just want to go home. A home I didn't remember, for everything was gone to me, for I was alone. Having tears coming down my face, with sheriff saying to me, look, I'm going to help you, but for now you need to calm down. Placing his hand on my hand, saying to me, for now let's get you something to eat, and then we will go from there. Till then, there is a bathroom over there if need. Making my way into the bathroom, standing there looking into the mirror, a feeling of dread suddenly came over me. With the feeling of I wasn't alone in there, looking slowly around me, looking into the mirror. For standing there looking into the mirror, I saw a young girl with long blonde hair, with blue eyes, looking at me. With her age, looking in between, that early 20s or 30s, trying my best to remember anything, when suddenly a voice whispered to me saying, forever her, jumping back, screaming, who was there? Whispering again, saying, Fakan, forever alone, screaming. As I ran out of the bathroom, out the police station, into the rain, looking in every which direction. Just as the sheriff ran out and grabbed me by my shoulders with me yelling, I just want to go home, I just want to go home. Falling to my knees, just as the sheriff placed both of his hands on my shoulders, saying, look, I am going to do my best to help you, but you have to help me by staying calm, reassuring me everything is going to be all right, everything is going to be all right. Standing up, I looked to the sheriff with tears in my eyes, saying, thank you, with the sheriff looking at me saying, now let's go and get you something to eat, and get you dry and out of this rain here. There is a good diner across the street in front of us. Walking across the street, I noticed the guy that watching me from earlier was now finally gone. Walking in, no one inside seemed familiar to me, unlike the sheriff as he greeted almost everyone in the place. Wishing I could remember anything at this point, but nothing but emptiness inside me, with nothing but loneliness. As we sat down, a man entered into the diner, carrying what seemed to a paper of some kind, holding it up, showing it to everyone that he came in contact with. approaching us, showing the sheriff a picture saying, "Sheriff, please, my boy is missing, have you seen him?" With the sheriff replying, "He does look familiar, I may have seen him earlier, afraid, but I will keep an eye out for him. One of my deputies will help you fill out a missing person report." As the man started to walk away, he then turned to me, looking at me. I could see a tear running down his cheek, showing me the picture of his son, asking me if I had seen him. Saying to him, "I'm sorry, I don't know who he is, I don't even know who I am." Just as a cold chill then came with the sound of laughter only I could hear, as the feeling of loneliness hit me even harder this time. As I then looked to the man, as tears began to flow from him, as he stood there saying, "I don't understand what happened to him. We are a very caring family that loves one another very much." Looking at him with sadness, I told him that I hope you are able to find your son, as he then thanked me and the sheriff. Slowly he walked away, thinking to myself, would he find his son? And would I find my own family? Later we was making our way to the hospital. I found myself looking out at the houses as we passed by them, wondering to myself, could one of them be mine, as we drove down the road? Looking out at the people as we passed by them, looking at them, wondering to myself if I had a family, a mom, a dad or brother or a sister, someone to call my own someone. To call family, was someone missing me, or was there no one there to miss me? Looking out at the houses, I also saw houses that had a look of emptiness to them, with no one there. I saw them as abandoned, forgotten about, thinking that no one cared, that maybe I was abandoned, forgotten about. And no one cared for me, just as the sign on the side of the road read "one way," for there was only one way for me to know, and that was to remember feeling abandoned and forgotten about. That was my memory for me. Pulling into the hospital, getting out, we then made our way into the hospital. As we then sat down, a woman then approached us, not knowing who she was. The sheriff leaned towards me, saying this was Nurse Jennifer, that she was going to try to help me. That name would later come to forever haunt me. Grabbing my hand, she then asked me to try to see if I could remember anything at all, anything. Closing my eyes, trying to think back, just as an image then began to appear, an image of me standing in front of a mirror. Standing there looking into the mirror, trying to remember at all I could see was an image of me smiling, grinning back at me. But the only thing was, and that I was not smiling, but the reflection was, letting out a scream as the nurse then placed her hands on my cheeks, turning to the sheriff saying, "It is best that she spends the night here and we will go from there." Looking at me, she said, "I assure you that we will find answers for you and that everything was going to be okay. But for now, we're going to have you spend the night here." As we got up to head to the room, the sheriff then placed his hand on my shoulder, looking at me with a grin, saying to me, "Everything is going to be okay. I now need you to stay here tonight. Now do you your best for Jennifer here and she will take care of you. Oh, and one last thing, I will see you later." Looking at the sheriff as he made his way to the exit, I thought to myself, everything will be okay, I hope. Making our way to the room with Jennifer, looking inside of the other rooms, some were empty and some had people. But a few rooms I could see only had one person with no visitors. I could not help but to think to myself, will I get a visitor, will someone come looking for me? As I looked into one room, I saw an old man sitting there in his bed, looking out of his window out into a world of memories. Thinking to myself, did he have anyone, or is he alone? As I thought that to myself, he then looked at me and smiled. He then spoke to me with a tear in his eye, saying, "Hello, young lady, how you doing today?" Smiling back to him, I replied, "I could be better." Smiling back to me as he then looked away from me, looking out of window into the world for which he would soon leave. But then he suddenly looked back at me, smiling and grinning, saying to me, "Memories, I have a lot of memories of my life. Memories that I cherish, memories of my childhood, memories that you will never get back. Why did you do it? What was you looking for? What was you hoping for?" Jumping back, startled, I thought to myself, what was he saying? Why did he speak to me? Telling me, asking me these things? Quickly grabbing Jennifer as I pointed to the old man with Jennifer, then grabbing me, saying, "Wait right here," as she walked over to him. All of the sudden, she called for assistance. Other nurses came walking into the room, with Jennifer walking out the room of the over to me, saying, "Let's get you to your room." Thinking about the old man as we walk into the room, thinking about what he had said, I asked Jennifer if he was all right. with Jennifer looking at me, grabbing my hand, telling me that he had passed away, that he was already gone when I pointed at him. From that moment, I was not able to even think of anything as Jennifer handed me a hospital gown to put on. She then placed her hand in my cheek, saying to me, "I know you are scared right now. I know that you are thinking about the old man, but you have to know that things like that happen here. You want to think that life goes on, that life continues. It's hard, I know, but you need to get some rest, and tomorrow I will come back to check on you. But for now, if anyone just press the call button and someone will come." Looking at Jennifer, with a smile as I laid back on my pillow, as she then left the room. Thinking to myself, maybe in the morning when I wake, that my memories would return. Looking out of the window into the night sky as I fell asleep, I dreamed. I dreamed that I was standing there looking out of the window, out into the night sky with all of its stars looking back at me. But in the distance, a house I could in the distance, walking closer to it, I could see people in it laughing, playing, enjoying each other's company as the sun starting to rise, shining bright upon the house. I could feel the warmth, the love, as it radiated around me. As I walked inside, I saw a man and woman and child standing there smiling at me. With man standing with his back to me, covering his face as he cried, I could feel sadness as it filled the room. Recognizing the man from the diner as they began to speak, asking me, "Why did you leave? Where did you go? We were worried for you." I then looked at them and asked, "Who am I to you? Who was I? And are you my family?" With the woman smiling as she cried, looking at me and saying to me, "Why did you do it? What was hoping for? What was you looking for?" Just then, little boy looked up to me saying, "But you promised that you would never leave, that you would be here for me as I grew up." With tears now running down my face, he then asked me, "Do you not love me no more? Did I not mean anything to you?" Falling to my knees, trembling, reaching with my hands out to him, saying, "Please, tell me who I was to you. Please, are you my family?" Just another voice came to me, a deeper, darker voice saying, "But this is what you wanted. This is what you asked for." With me screaming, "What do you mean this is what I wanted? Why did you ask me this? Tell me." Just the light outside began to turn to darkness. With a smile and a grin, they all three looked at me and said, "You will never know us again. You will never see us again," as they kept repeating it over and over again, smiling and laughing at me, saying, "You did what you did, you done what you done, now you will never know us again. You will never see us again, for alone you will forever be in a life, living a life of never knowing who you are, only knowing that you are the one who you are now. For when you looked into the mirror and saw the person standing there before you, forever you will be that person, for what you did will never be undone." With one smile from them, with one last look, I woke screaming and yelling, "What did I do? What did I do? Please tell me." Just as the nurses came running into the room, grabbing hold of me, trying to calm me down. Just as jumped up screaming, running out into the hall, running for the door. Not knowing where I was going, but only knowing I had to get there for me to know what did I do? What did I do? Running out the hospital, I did not running and screaming, thinking of the dream, who was they. I thought of the sheriff and of Jennifer, on whether they could really help me. As I continued to run, not knowing where I was going, but knowing something had to happen. Coming to a stop, falling to the ground, screaming, "What did I do?" Looking around, I saw a church slowly making my way, dragging my body onto the concrete steps. As I cried, as I screamed, "Help me, help me, please God, help me, please, would someone, anyone help me?" Inching closer to the door, my cries grew louder. "Please, I beg of you, help me, help me." With my voice lowering as my cries for help grew softer, fighting back the tears, begging, pleading with all I had left, I cried out, "Don't leave me here like this. Please don't leave me here like this. I beg of you, I plead of you, please help me." As tears ran down my face, thinking to myself as laid there, saying to myself, "I don't want to be alone, please does anyone care? I don't want to die alone." Laying there on the church steps, I could take no more with every thought that went through my mind, thinking of what did I do? I then began to shout, "Please tell me, what did I do, please?" A few minutes had passed and I had come my wits' end, screaming and shouting as I cried, "What did I do? Would you please tell me what I did?" as I laid there with my arms reaching out towards the sky above me. As the tears flowed onto the concrete steps under me, I could feel myself slowly losing everything around me. Laying there thinking to myself, is there any help? Was there any help for me? Or was I just to let go of everything, knowing everything I was, everything I knew, everyone around me was gone to me? As I passed out on the church steps, as I dreamed, I could see an individual walking slowly up to me as an eeriness surrounded him. With the feeling of all hope was lost to me as he got closer to me, but then silence as he stood there looking at me. With his eyes that seemed a solid white from a distance now, a pitch-black feeling of void from within him held no escape. The darkness surrounding him with the void of any light behind him, I could feel pain, agony, loneliness, fear as it takes over you, covering every inch of you. With all hope leaving you with feeling of being lost forever, in a darkness that you will never see any light of any kind again. As the fear began to grow worse over me, as loneliness, real loneliness, began to set in, as he then began to speak, saying to me, "Is this not what you wanted? It is what you wrote," replying to him. What did I write? What did I want? As he stood there motionless, just staring at me with his darkened eyes. Saying to me, "I will temporarily open you mind, to yet you see for yourself." For what did you see when you looked into the mirror? Trembling as I could feel my mind slowly coming back to me, I could see myself sitting at a desk, looking at a picture of a girl, the girl that I was now. Seeing myself standing in front of a mirror, looking closer, I saw what was written on the mirror. "Your soul you sold for her. For her you are." For I was now the girl in photo, remembering me running from out of the bathroom, running out into the rain, finding myself, well, I was on the sidewalk. With my mind and memories now open to me, I now knew what I asked for. But what was next for me? What do I do now? Looking at me with a blank stare, the being then spoke to me, saying, "For you think we answer all requests? Do you think everyone that sells their soul always gets what they want?" Laughing at me as he then continued to speak, saying, "If 1,000 people sold their souls to us to be a billionaire, all we have to do is to float them a single idea. Then the one who acts on it gets it maybe. As for the rest, well, they get to live for now till we take them. For, you see, we really do not have to do anything for anyone at all. For all we need to do is to keep you asking for it, to make you want it more and more, giving you just enough to keep you in our grasp, to keep you from the truth, to keep you from what once was true to you. For in the end, all we have to do is nothing. For how can you sell something that is already ours? For if you do not serve a purpose to us, then why would we even bother with you at all?" Looking at him, I ask, "Then why me? Why did you answer my request?" With a laugh, the being spoke to me, saying, "Simple, to break your mother and father's faith, to bring pain to them, to watch them as they lose faith by not knowing what happened to you. For once you truly walked with the one above, but that changed when we was just simply put a single thought into your mind, a dream." Laughing as then spoke one last thing, saying, "And to just watch you as you hopelessly lost your mind over time. For as you are now, cast out from the people you shall be, a stranger you will be to them, alone you will remain till we come for you." Then begins the real pain. Laughing, he vanished back into the night. I just sat there thinking to myself, everything that I lost, everything I was, everyone around me that knew me, loved me, now forever gone from me, knowing now that there was nobody coming for me, knowing there was no help for me, I was alone. For the very thing that gave me my identity, I sold to be who I am now. A girl forever lost to the world, in world where I had no identity, thinking to myself, strangers, they are to me, and a stranger to them I am. For I have become a stranger in the very town I lived in, a town that I grew up in. But just as I felt my memory began to go, I knew that the life that I knew, the life that I lived, would be no more. But even worse, just before my memory left, one memory, one thought was left. As I sat there on the steps of the church, and that the young man in the picture that the man was holding in the diner was me, and the man was my father. Screaming out, no, just as my memories left me forever, my last thought was, I was forever her, forever alone.